Welcome to the 3 a.m. Club. If you're watching this, you probably think the Secret Service is all about cool sunglasses, earpieces, and looking like a badass in a suit while walking next to the most powerful man on Earth. Well, congratulations. You've been lied to by Hollywood. In reality, being on a presidential protective division, especially the one assigned to the 45th and potentially 47th president, is a one-way ticket to chronic sleep deprivation, lukewarm gas station coffee, and a level of stress that makes a bomb squad technician look like he's on a spa retreat. Imagine your life is now a permanent game of Where's Waldo, but Waldo is a high-velocity projectile, and if he finds your guy, the entire world changes. That's the job. For a Secret Service agent assigned to Donald Trump, the routine isn't just about standing around. It's a logistical nightmare wrapped in a tactical enigma. Let's talk about the advance. You don't just show up at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, or a hotel in Palm Beach and hope for the best. 2 weeks before the former president even thinks about stepping off the plane, the advance team is already on the ground. They're the unsung heroes of the Code Black lifestyle. They're checking the HVAC systems for poison gas, they're vetting every single janitor in the building, and they're mapping out every hospital within a 10-mile radius that has the correct blood type for the protectee on ice. They aren't looking for friends, they're looking for holes, weak points in the perimeter where a threat could slip through. When you're on the shift, your day starts before the sun considers rising. You're in a dark suit that feels like a lead weight, checking your Glock 19 for the 10th time. You've got your earpiece in, the coiled cord of misery, which is constantly chirping with radio traffic that sounds like a hive of angry bees. Eagle is moving. The package is secure. Check the mags. The mags, that's the magnetometers. Every single person at a Trump rally has to go through them. It's a bottleneck of human frustration. You're scanning the crowd, but you're not looking at faces. You're looking at hands. Hands kill. Hands hide things. You're looking for the bulge in a waistband, the twitchy behavior of someone who's been standing in the sun for 8 hours but isn't sweating. You're looking for the outlier. And you're doing this while standing on asphalt that's 105 degrees, wondering if that third Rip-It energy drink is finally going to give you the heart attack you've been flirting with. Being on Trump's detail is unique because of the sheer scale. The rallies aren't just events, they're small cities. You've got thousands of people, most of them cheering, some of them protesting, and all of them unpredictable. You're the thin black line between a political event and a national catastrophe. The crowd is a sea of noise, but you have to stay in your bubble. The bubble is the 360-degree awareness zone around the protectee. If you're looking at the president, you're failing. Your job is to look at everything else. You're the guy at the party who doesn't drink, doesn't laugh, and is mentally calculating the quickest way to tackle a 78-year-old man into the back of a 20-ton armored limousine. And then there's the beast, the Cadillac One. It's not a car, it's a rolling bunker. It's got 5-inch thick glass, a sealed oxygen system for chemical attacks, and more armor than an M1 Abrams tank. Driving it is like piloting a building through a needle's eye. But even inside the beast, you aren't safe. You're just in a slightly more comfortable target. By the time the day ends, usually around 2 a.m. the next day, you're back in a generic hotel room that smells like stale carpet and regret. You've got 4 hours to sleep before you do it all over again in a different time zone. Your family doesn't know where you are, your dog has forgotten your scent, and your only friend is the caffeine-induced tremor in your right hand. But hey, at least you get a cool pin for your lapel, right?
So, you think you've got what it takes to wear the suit? You think you can handle the psycho face for 20 hours a day? Good. Now go tell that to the instructors at the James J. Rowley Training Center in Beltsville, Maryland. This is where dreams go to die and where the Secret Service builds the human shields of the future. The recruitment process is a meat grinder. Out of thousands of applicants, only a tiny fraction even make it to the first interview. They don't just want guys who can shoot, they want people who are tactically boring. If you're a cowboy, go join the SEALs. If you're a glory hound, go to the FBI. The Secret Service wants the guy who can stand perfectly still for 6 hours and then in half a second turn into a violent, precise machine of protection. First, you go through FLETC, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. That's the easy part. That's where you learn how to be a cop. The real fun starts when you get specialised. We're talking about the Beltsville Watergate. It's a mock city where they run scenarios that would give a normal person a nervous breakdown. Imagine a simulation where you're protecting a stickman dignitary. Suddenly, a flashbang goes off, 3 assassins open fire with paint marking rounds, and a crowd of protesters starts throwing bricks. If you flinch, you fail. If you look for cover for yourself before you cover the package, you're out. The philosophy is simple: cover and evacuate. You are the shield. Your body is the most expensive piece of equipment the government owns, and its only purpose is to take a bullet so the guy with the nuclear codes doesn't have to. The firearms training is relentless. You don't just shoot at paper targets, you shoot while moving. You shoot from the window of a moving car. You shoot while someone is screaming in your ear and dragging you away. You learn to handle the Sig Sauer, the Glock, and the FNP-90, the Swiss Army knife of submachine guns that stays hidden under your coat until the world goes to hell. But it's not all about the bang-bang, it's about the J-turn. The defensive driving course is legendary. You're taught how to take a multi-ton SUV and spin it 180 degrees at 60 miles per hour in a space no wider than a 2-lane road. You learn how to ram through blockades without blowing your tyres. You learn that a car is a weapon, an escape pod, and a coffin all at once. Then there's the medical training. Every agent on the Presidential Protective Division is basically a combat medic with a better tailor. You're trained to handle massive trauma, gunshot wounds, and cardiac arrest. Why? Because when the code black hits, the nearest ER is too far away. You are the ER. You're the one holding the pressure on a femoral artery while the motorcade screams through city streets at 90 miles per hour. The psychological screening is the real filter. They want to see how you handle the burn. The burnout rate in the Secret Service is astronomical. Divorces, alcoholism, and the 1,000-yard stare are part of the benefits package. They put you in high-stress interviews, they sleep deprive you, and they watch how you react when everything goes wrong. If you're the type of person who needs work-life balance, this isn't for you. There is no balance, there is only the mission. The final test is the shift. You're put into a simulated rally environment. It's loud, it's chaotic, and you're exhausted. The instructors are watching your eyes. Are you scanning? Are you communicating? Are you aware of the high ground? If a guy on a roof 300 yards away so much as sneezes, did you see the reflection of his glasses? If you missed it, you're not going to DC. You're going back to a field office in Nebraska to investigate counterfeit $20 bills for the next 5 years. Training for the Trump detail adds another layer of insanity. Because of the constant rallies, the physical stamina required is double that of a standard detail. You have to be able to handle the heat of an outdoor stage in Arizona and the freezing winds of an airport in Michigan, all while looking like you're ready to kill or die. It's not just a job, it's a physiological endurance test that never ends.
July 13th, 2024, Butler, Pennsylvania. A Saturday afternoon that started like every other shift, hot, humid, and smelling of popcorn and diesel exhaust. For the agents on the ground, it was just another day in the bubble. But the code black doesn't announce itself. It arrives in the form of a pop, pop, pop that sounds like firecrackers, but feels like the end of the world. Let's break down the anatomy of an assassination attempt from the perspective of the agents who were there. 6:11 p.m. Donald Trump is talking about immigration charts. The crowd is cheering. In that split second, the counter-sniper team, codenamed Hawkeye, is perched on the roofs of the surrounding buildings. They are the gods of the long view. They're scanning through high-powered optics, looking for a needle in a haystack of thousands. Suddenly, one of the Hawkeye team sees it, a figure on a roof, a rifle. But here's the reality of the Secret Service. You can't just fire into a crowd because you see someone with a gun. There's a chain of command, a split-second verification process. Is it local law enforcement? Is it a threat? Then the shots ring out. The first bullet grazes the former president's ear. In that microsecond, the training kicks in. It's not a choice, it's a reflex. The agents on the shift, the ones standing at the base of the podium, don't look at the shooter. They don't look at the crowd. They move toward the package. Get down, get down, get down. This is the huddle. Within 3 seconds, 4 agents have thrown their bodies on top of Trump. They aren't just protecting him, they're weighing him down, making him a smaller target, and using their own ballistic vest-covered torsos as a human wall. You're breathing in the smell of soot, wool, and sweat, hearing the screams of the crowd, and feeling the adrenaline dump into your system like a gallon of liquid fire. On the radio, it's chaos and precision. Hawkeye has neutralized the threat. Shooter is down. Are we clear? Ready, ready, ready. The agents in the huddle are communicating through touch. They're checking the president for wounds. They're looking for leakage, blood. When Trump says, "Let me get my shoes," a normal person would think it's a weird request. But the agents don't care about shoes. They care about evac. They need to move him to the up-armored Suburban, the spare limo, as fast as humanly possible. As they stand him up, the world sees the iconic photo, the fist in the air, the blood on the face. But look at the agents. Look at their eyes. They aren't looking at the cameras. They're scanning the perimeter. They don't know if there's a second shooter. They don't know if a suicide bomber is about to rush the stage. Spare is ready. Move, move, move. The extraction is a blur of high-speed movement. They hustle him down the stairs, forming a diamond formation. This is a moving shield. If someone fires now, they have to hit an agent first. They shove him into the back of the Suburban. The doors slam with the sound of a bank vault, and the motorcade screams out of the venue. This is the Code 3 run. Every police officer in the county is clearing the way. You're heading to the safe site, in this case, a local hospital. But even there, the job isn't done. The agents have to secure the entire floor. They have to vet every nurse who walks into the room. They have to stand guard at the door while the doctors do their work, their suits covered in the president's blood, their hearts still beating at 160 beats per minute. The aftermath is a different kind of hell. The after-action report, the congressional hearings, the media calling you a failure because a 20-year-old kid got a shot off. The guilt. Every agent on that stage is asking themselves the same thing. What did I miss? It doesn't matter that the shooter was neutralized in seconds. It doesn't matter that the president lived. In the Secret Service, a near miss is a total failure. You go back to the hotel. You're still wearing the same suit. You finally wash the blood off your hands. You look in the mirror, and you see the psycho face staring back, the dilated pupils, the dark circles, the look of a man who has seen the abyss and had to shove it back. You check your phone. You've got a flight to New Jersey in 4 hours for the next event. Being a Secret Service agent for Donald Trump isn't about politics. It's about the reality of the graveyard shift. It's about being the person who stands in the gap when the world goes crazy. It's a thankless, exhausting, soul-crushing job that you wouldn't trade for anything in the world. Because when the shots fire and everyone else runs away, you're the one who runs toward the noise. You're the Secret Service, and the Code Black is your home. Now, go find some coffee. You're gonna need it.